Hi guys, how's it going? DraftKings Fantasy Football back again this weekend. Premier League is back in the saddle with 8 games in total on Saturday. The biggest slate of the day focuses on these 7 games from 3 o'clock onwards, but in this video I've looked at all 8 games, kicking off with the 12:30 kickoff between Tottenham Hotspur, the conquerors of the champions-in-waiting Chelsea, and West Bromwich Albion. Dele Alli, who of course scored the 2 goals in that game, has 3 braces in a row and he's been scoring fantasy points at a rate of knots. Spurs have the best defence in the Premier League, having conceded just 14 goals, and they overtook Chelsea by scoring the 2 against them. West Brom are actually one of Spurs' bogey sides in the Premier League, and they do tend to struggle against the Baggies, but Spurs best shots per game, so you're going to get some good fantasy points there. And Christian Eriksen is in great form right now. He's been banging in those assists, has some of the best shot stats in the entire league, and I think if you picked Eriksen or Ali in one of those smaller contests, you'd be laughing. West Brom, on the other hand, what a start for Tony Pulis' side this season. Matty Phillips has been nothing short of incredible. 8 assists, the only person with a better total than that is Kevin De Bruyne, and they've also got Ben Foster as well, who makes a lot of saves. My prediction for this game is that it's going to be a tight one, but I can see Spurs winning this probably 2-1, but then again, I would not be surprised if it's a draw as well. So kicking things off with the 3 o'clock games, we travel all the way up to the northwest into the deepest of deep Lancashire. Yep, you've guessed it, we're at Turf Moor. Burnley versus Southampton. Burnley are the team that are the home bankers in the Premier League. They've got the 5th best home record in the league, and Sean Dyche is probably starting to think that he can stay up on home form alone. Are they staying up? I'm starting to think that they will do, actually. And I think that adding Joey Barton in midfield, he's a controversial character, but Sean Dyche really got the best out of him last season, and he may be someone to look at, considering they have got quite a lot of injuries in the middle of the park. Andre Gray, another one to look very carefully at. 4 goals in his last 2 home games, including that hat-trick against Sunderland. Tom Heaton, 4.6 saves per game. I think you have to pick Heaton in this game just because he's so cheap. Southampton, meanwhile, have 3 losses in a row in the Premier League, but they're going to take a lot of heart from beating Liverpool in the League Cup earlier on this week. Nathan Redmond getting the only goal of the game. Bit of turmoil down at St Mary's at the moment because of Jose Fonte wanting to leave, and also the status of Virgil van Dijk is also slightly up in the air. Those 2 are vital to this defence, which is, when fit, they're a very good defence. They're actually the 3rd worst scoring side in the Premier League, and losing Charlie Austin has really hit them hard. But I think all in all, Burnley are going to win this one. I think it will be an easy win. I think it will be 2-0 or 2-1, and I don't think they'll be sweating at all. So, moving across to the other side of the country, onto the Humber, Hull City with new manager Marco Silva, bottom of the league. They face Bournemouth. I think this is a good game to take advantage of in terms of goals, because you've got Hull, who have got the worst form in the Premier League right now, 2nd worst defence, and even though they have the worst attack, Bournemouth have got some injury problems at the back, which I think they can take advantage of. Snodgrass is the one guy you pick if you're going to go up to Hull and pick a player. Double-digit fantasy point in the 8 of his last 9 games for the Tigers. But then you've got to look at Bournemouth. What a crazy game that was down at the Vitality Stadium against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. They look like they're definitely going to stay in the Premier League again, which is why Eddie Howe is always being talked up for these new jobs, and he's done so well at the club. Nathan Ake, of course, has now gone back to Chelsea, which opens the door for others and brings a lot of value into it this week. But with Simon Francis suspended as well, I really would keep an eye on that back 4, because I'm not particularly confident in them. The one player I'd be confident of for Bournemouth is Junior Stanislas, who has 2 assists in his last 2 games, and whenever he plays on DraftKings seems to rack up a lot of points. Scoring this one, I can't really separate these 2. I'm going to go for a score draw. I'm going to go for 2-2. Next up is Sunderland versus Stoke, 2 teams that have not been in particularly good form recently, and Sunderland, they've got one player who is absolutely vital for them, and if they sell him, that's Jermaine Defoe, of course, I think they're definitely going to get relegated. They're the only team at the bottom of the league that haven't actually dispensed with their manager. David Moyes actually got them onto quite a bit of good form recently, especially in home games. They do have the 3rd worst attack in the league. They hardly ever shoot, and with Lamine Kone and Didier Ndong gone to the AFCON for a few weeks at least, I really worry about their ability to keep clean sheets. Stoke, on the other hand, absolutely terrible last weekend against Wolverhampton Wanderers in the FA Cup, where they had pretty much their first team playing. They're another team that have been hit hard by the African Cup of Nations, with Wilfred Boney and Mamadou Diouf off to Gabon to play in that competition. It means Peter Crouch is going to be continuing up front. Stoke City, 1 win in their last 6 games, And that was only Watford, so you really do worry that Mark Hughes is able to get anything out of these players. I think Sunderland have got this one. I think they're going to win it 2-0, and Manone will have a big game, as well as, obviously, Jermaine Defoe. So next up is Swansea City versus Arsenal down in South Wales at the Liberty Stadium. This is the first time that a lot of Swans fans will get to see their new manager, Paul Clement, in action, who also brought in Claude Makelele earlier on this week as one of his assistants. That win against Crystal Palace was just their 4th of the season, and they have got the worst defence in the Premier League, having conceded 45 goals. It's 5 games since the Swans kept a clean sheet, and they do heavily rely on the form of Gylfi Sigurdsson, who always seems to put up double-digit points and is a massive threat from set pieces. The future of Fernando Llorente is up in the air for the Swans, but I think you pick Sigurdsson in this game and you don't bother picking any of their other players, because the chances of them keeping a clean sheet or anything else are very, very slim. What a crazy time it is to be an Arsenal fan right now. 3-3 comeback against Bournemouth, where they scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes, and the 2-1 against Preston, where they had to wait right until the end until Giroud scored. Olivier Giroud is playing some absolutely excellent stuff right now. He was involved in all 3 goals against Bournemouth. He scored the winner against Preston North End, and it's actually 1 goal every 73.3 minutes. I can't believe I'm saying this. He has the best rate of any striker in the Premier League right now. Alongside him, he's got Alexis Sanchez, who's contributed to 20 goals already this season, which is almost half of Arsenal's 44 goals, which is actually the second highest total of anyone in the Premier League. The one thing I worry about with them is that they've only kept 6 clean sheets this season, and they are winless in 3 away games. But Swansea are that poor that Arsenal really need to be winning this game. So looking at this game, I think it's going to be Swansea 1, Arsenal 4. Talking of poor sides, Watford have been on an absolute slide of late, and Walter Mazzarri must be on the brink of losing his job after he's got no wins in his last 5 games. It's actually the 5th worst defence in the Premier League now, and after they started off quite well, they've had some heavy defeats of late, and they've actually only scored 2 goals in the last 4 games. The form of Odion Ighalo and Troy Deeney has been a real problem for the entire season for the Hornets. They're also the dirtiest side in the Premier League. They've actually committed 288 fouls this season. You've got to watch out for the yellow cards and the red cards with this team, because they do tend to stack up. One person who racks up the yellow cards is Jose Holebas, the left back, but I really like him in any game, and especially this one against Middlesbrough, who, let's face it, aren't one of the best teams in the division. Amrabat and Guedioura are both at the AFCON as well, so that's also something to consider when thinking about who they're going to rotate. Middlesbrough, meanwhile, only 4 points clear of relegation, and scoring goals has been a huge issue for them all season. 17 goals is the joint lowest scored in the whole league, and Alvaro Negredo, as much as he tries, hasn't really been able to turn it on. What they have done is brought in Rudy Gestede from the Championship, Aston Villa to be precise, and he is a genuine threat in the air. I think if he starts, he's at such a low price that maybe he's worth putting in one of your lineups, because there's going to be a lot of spread of ownership. Borough have only conceded 22 times this season, which is actually the 4th best total in the Premier League, and that shows that if you've got a good enough defence, then maybe you can stay up. I personally don't subscribe to that, because I think you need goals, and I think the teams down there that have got goal scorers are the ones that are going to stay up. Borough have had the least shots and the least shots on goal of any team in the Premier League this season. Putting my neck on the line and calling out for a result, I'm going to go for a Watford 1, Middlesbrough 1. So the penultimate game is a big London derby with massive implications at the bottom of the table. Call it the James Tompkins derby, call it the Sam Allardyce derby. Of course, it's West Ham United versus my team, Crystal Palace. All the talk around West Ham is now all about that decision by Dimitri Payet to tell the club that he does not want to stay. He wants to leave, and he dominates everything at the club right now. West Ham have had 2 straight losses, and if Payet isn't playing, I really don't see where the rest of the attacking intent is going to come from. Mikel Antonio has also been ill this week, so look at their team and it's hard to pick anyone. They've conceded 35 times this season, and I think the departure of Cheikhou Kouyaté to the African Cup of Nations is going to hit them very, very hard. 73 saves is the 4th best total in the whole of the league, and it just goes to show that their goalkeepers have been very, very busy all season, and maybe if they hadn't made many saves, West Ham would be in an even worse position. So their opponents are Crystal Palace, and Sam Allardyce's arrival has not given them the boost that many people had hoped in Selhurst Park. They've made no new signings as yet, and Sam Allardyce is working incredibly hard to try and get some defenders in. And if you listen to his press conference on Thursday, you could tell just how obsessed he is with getting this side to defend properly. And it's no surprise when you see that they've kept just one clean sheet all season. The Swansea game, Palace were absolutely awful. It's now 6 games without a win for the Eagles, and they've got the third worst defence in the Premier League. One bright spot is that Christian Benteke is going to be fit for this game, and Loic Remy will play a part. But that big void left by Wilfried Zaha, who's gone to the African Cup of Nations, cannot be ignored. For that reason, I see this as a 1-1 draw. It's not going to be pretty. I see goals from Carroll and Benteke. Finally, it's the match between the last 2 champions in the Premier League, Leicester City, last year's champions, and Chelsea, champions from the season before and probably champions this season as well. Leicester have picked up 2 clean sheets and 4 points from their last 2 games in an improvement on what has been a very disappointing season so far. They are still 6 points above the drop zone, but with Slimani and Mahrez away at the African Cup of Nations, it does give other players a chance to impress, namely new signing Wilfred Ndidi, who will probably make his debut here, and Ahmed Musa, the striker who was signed by Leicester in the summer from CSKA Moscow. Chelsea, meanwhile, there's not a lot you really need to say about them. They can go 8 points clear with a win here if Liverpool are playing on the Sunday. Second best defence in the league, only 15 goals conceded. Third best attack in the league, 42 goals scored. Leicester's defence has been shaky at best this season, and if you rely on Diego Costa and even Eden Hazard, you'll be laughing. I think this game is going to be a Chelsea win. It'll be an easy 2-0. So guys, that's all the games from Saturday. If you like what you saw here, give us a thumbs up below. You can also subscribe to this channel where there's plenty of Fantasy Premier League and DraftKings Fantasy Football content on every single day and every week of the season. Thank you very much for watching and goodbye.